Hello, I'm Jim Cornell, and this is Base to Base, the weekly biotech podcast from Air Coastal Media. Yes, welcome again to the Base to Base Biotech podcast. This is number 41, going out on January the 9th. And that means I'm probably the last person to wish you all a very happy new year. I'd planned on a podcast last week, but illness prevented it. I've actually been holed up since December the 30th, first with the flu, then tonsillitis on top of that, and then I went 3 for 3 with conjunctivitis as well. So I've still not yet seen the outside world in 2026, except from the window. As you can tell by the voice, I'm not out of the woods yet. I was told to rest my voice to help the recovery of my throat, and I'm sure my family cheered. I guess I was told the same thing a lot when I was in a band, but what can you do? Hopefully the voice is back by next week, as the shoe is on the other foot, so to speak, as I'm also being interviewed in Canada by 3 radio stations about my latest book, which has nothing to do with life sciences. So I'll try and keep my comments short this week and let you know who's on the podcast. This week we're talking about eye treatments with Oculis CEO Riad Sharif. We have a conversation about mitochondria and a little bit more than that with the CEO of Vandria, Klaus Dugi. And there's also a short discussion about GoCo Health Innovation City in Gothenburg, Sweden, with Moa Dicksdotter, who is responsible for partnership and ecosystem. If you do have news or suggestions for who should be on the podcast, or indeed any other comments, please do get in touch at jim@deeptechdigest.com, which is also the address you can use if you're interested in advertising with us or sponsoring a podcast episode, or with tips on how to get my voice back. Okay, so let's get to the interviews and the first one of 2026, even though it was done in 2025. Vandria is a Swiss company developing products aimed at restoring mitochondrial quality control in age-related and chronic diseases. Its approach centers on orally available compounds designed to improve cellular resilience in neurological and muscular disorders. The company's lead program, VNA318, is being advanced for neurodegenerative indications. To tell us more is the company's CEO, Klaus Dugi. Okay, well, I guess first then, I wonder if you could tell me a little bit about the company.
Yes, so Vandria was incorporated a little over 4 years ago, and the initial mission was to find drugs that help rejuvenate the powerhouses of our cells, the so-called mitochondria. And we found some very interesting compounds. Later, we also identified the molecular target that our compounds hit, and we realized that we're actually upstream of the process called mitophagy, the selective recognition of damaged mitochondria and the replacement with healthy mitochondria. So we now think we have like a mitophagy plus company, which is exciting. We try to use that, the improvement of mitochondrial function and the reduction of chronic inflammation to treat age-related diseases. And our frontrunner compound, and the reason why we speak today, is a brain-penetrant compound tackling CNS disorders.
What you're doing sounds quite different to other companies. Are there other companies doing the same kind of thing?
So there are other companies that also try to rejuvenate the mitochondria. 2 of those are also in early clinical development. One is called Mission Therapeutics. The other one was called Mitokinin, which was acquired by AbbVie a couple of years ago. But where we think we differentiate is that we are kind of this mitophagy plus. So our frontrunner compound appears to have a dual mode of action, where we immediately improve memory and learning, so the cognitive function. And then in addition to that, we have long-term disease-modifying properties like reduced brain inflammation, reduced toxic protein aggregation, and again, improved mitochondrial function. So that's where we think we set a little bit apart by having this dual mode of action. So far, we've only shown this in rodents, in mice. So the hurdle and the challenge then is to also hopefully show this in human beings.
Right. And one of the things that you're working on chiefly is Alzheimer's disease. There are so many companies working on that, and it seems like we're making a difference, but not really getting the whole picture. How difficult is it to work in an area like that and actually make a big difference?
Yeah, it is a tough area. It is a difficult disease to make a patient-relevant difference in. When we started fundraising for our company 3 years ago, when we talked about wanting to tackle Alzheimer's disease, we didn't get a lot of traction because of the many failures in that field. That has changed since the two recent approvals of the monoclonal antibodies. There's a lot more attention to Alzheimer's disease. It seems like there are ways of tackling disease, but it's still a long journey forward. And we just this week, we saw two significant failures. Novo Nordisk failed with their GLP-1 agonist in a phase 3 or in 2 phase 3 trials in Alzheimer's disease, and Johnson & Johnson failed a phase 2b study in Alzheimer's disease. So it's a difficult area, but we are very excited about our preclinical data, which consistently show a dramatic improvement in different models of Alzheimer's disease. So again, this is rodents, so the hurdle is high to show a similar efficacy in humans, but we're very encouraged by the reproducibility of our preclinical results.
Right. If we take a little step back, I wonder if you could tell me about VNA 318 and what it is, how it works.
Yes, let's take a step back. So 35 years ago, we started the Human Genome Project, and we learned a huge amount about genetic diseases, which then led to some gene therapy approaches, etc. But we have to be cognizant of the fact that we die with the same genes we are born with, right? So, and luckily, when we're in our 20s, 30s, and 40s, we're healthy. Most of us are healthy with our genes. But then we get to our 60s, 70s, 80s. Unfortunately, the risk of chronic diseases, degenerative diseases increases. And we believe that one reason is that our cells, when they age, lose the ability to efficiently produce energy. And that's what our mode of action does. It helps to rejuvenate the energy production in the cells. So there is a way, an inefficient way that old cells, that pro-inflammatory cells produce energy, and we can shut this off. And then we force the cells back to generate energy in an efficient manner in the mitochondria and these powerhouses of our cells. And that induces this process of mitophagy and has long-term positive effects. And VNA 318 is our frontrunner compound. We have others in the pipeline, but 318 is the one where we're now reporting our first in human results at the clinical trials in Alzheimer's disease conference in San Diego.
Could you tell me a bit about the method of delivery and whether it's something that's a one and done or whether it needs repeat dosing?
Yes, so we're very excited that the results show that this is a once daily treatment, an oral tablet to be taken. And like with most chronic diseases, it's going to be chronic therapy. So patients will have to take a daily pill, similar to what we know from treatment of hypertension, diabetes, etc. You have to continue taking the drug. But the good news is we see excellent tolerability and safety. So far, we haven't encountered any side effects, so that should make it easy for patients to take the drug because it's well tolerated. It's once daily, an oral pill. It's not an injection.
Could you tell me a bit about the presentation at CT80?
Yes, so we presented the first results from the first in human trial that we just finished. The main objective is to show safety and tolerability in a first in human trial, and we're very excited that we could demonstrate that. There weren't any adverse events of concern. In addition to that, we showed excellent pharmacokinetics, so the drug really gets into the human body. That's important. We have quite predictable pharmacokinetics, so we have limited variability, we have long half-life, so that'll help us with future development. The third thing that is important is we could also demonstrate that the compound gets into the brain. We performed lumbar punctures in a few subjects and obtained cerebrospinal fluid and could show that the compound gets into the brain. And then lastly, and that's what we are most excited about, we could show already after single dosing a highly statistically significant target engagement biomarker. That shows that the mode of action that we've demonstrated worked so well in mice seems to also work in humans. Whether that then translates into disease benefit, we have to show in phase 2 trials. But the start of clinical development, the first human trial, is very positive.
Have you shared this with anybody to get reaction yet, or is it too early for that?
So under confidentiality, we share a lot of those data with investors, but also with pharma companies. And because it is true innovation, to the best of our knowledge, we're first in class with our mode of action, we're getting quite a bit of interest. And the feedback that we get on the preclinical data is that they're strong. Also, if you benchmark them against other approaches, and the tolerability, the pharmacokinetics, and the target engagement is very positively received by those venture capital funds and those pharma companies that we've shared it with.
Oh, that's excellent. In terms of the disease itself, are you looking to stop it in its tracks so that it becomes a manageable disease, or are you looking to be able to turn the clock back even a little bit?
So the answer is actually both. I talked about this dual mode of action so that we seem to have an immediate improvement in memory and learning that hopefully the patient or the caregiver can notice. So that to a certain degree is turning back the clock to a better functionality. And then I also mentioned that for the long term, we have the disease modifying properties. So that we hope to slow the progression of disease, as we see was possible with the monoclonal antibodies. Stopping the disease progression in its entirety will be a challenge and will probably require combination therapy. And again, a drug like ours that is once daily oral is well tolerated, doesn't appear to have any drug-drug interaction effects. So it could be a good combination partner also for future therapies to tackle Alzheimer's disease.
And I guess with something like Alzheimer's disease, it tends to be something that's more of a thing that happens in old age, and there are other factors as well. So it's not like when you're 70 years old that you're going to be able to turn the brain back and memory back to as if you were 20 again.
Exactly. So hopefully we can show an improvement. I mentioned we have these preclinical results. Maybe I'd say a few words about that because I remain quite excited. So there's an experiment, it's called the T maze. You put the mouse at the bottom of a T and then you go up and you go left or right. You take it back and then it goes up again. And if it remembers it went left last time, there was no cheese, it's going to go right because mice are curious. And young mice do this very well. They remember about 70% of the time whether they went left or right. Old mice don't do so well anymore. They only remember about 30% of the time. And if we treat those old mice with very low doses of our compound for just 2 weeks, they go back to 70%. So we had old mice to learn as well again as young mice. How this translates into the human setting, how much we can actually improve memory and learning, we don't know. But the preclinical results are very encouraging.
So is that something then, getting off track a little bit, but is that something then that you see as being potentially useful for people without any cognitive decline? Because obviously if you can, as a 60-year-old, now learning a new language is a lot more challenging than it was when I was 18. Do you think it will have benefits just for older people in general?
This may be, but our mission really is to treat disease, relevant disease. We think with our mode of action, we can also explore other diseases of the brain, like Parkinson's disease. We even have preclinical data that suggests efficacy in amyotrophic lateral sclerosis or Lou Gehrig's disease. We believe the focus will really be on age-related diseases, but whether there could be an impact on even normal function, we don't know.
Does the stage at which the drug is given make a difference?
So again, we don't know that yet. With regard to the disease modifying properties, probably most experts would say that the earlier in the disease progression you start, the higher the likelihood that you can make a significant change in the future decline of the patients. With regard to the immediate pro-cognitive effects, so the improved memory and learning, that we will test in patients who already have cognitive impairment to see whether we can improve on that. So again, with the dual mode of action, we're looking a little bit at those two sides of the coin.
And the results so far, extremely exciting. What are your plans moving into phase 2?
Yes, so we want to go into patients with the early Alzheimer's disease, but who do already show cognitive impairment. We want to see whether our drug can help these Alzheimer patients to memorize, to learn better. And we also want to look at biomarkers, both in the blood and again in the cerebrospinal fluid, to show that hopefully we can demonstrate that we reduce the brain inflammation that would then suggest that with long-term treatment, we can slow the progression of the disease. So again, trying to utilize the dual mode of action, hopefully show an immediate pro-cognitive effect, maybe already after 4 weeks of treatment, but then use biomarkers to show the promise that if we would treat Alzheimer patients for longer, that we have a benefit also in the long term. And that's a study we plan to start in 2026.
All right. And are you looking to partnerships or for investment for that?
So both. So we want to raise the Series B in 2026 to pay for these efficacy studies in patients. But we are already in dialogue with interested pharma companies who think our approach is interesting, the data are interesting. So we want to kind of leave those two options open. But the focus at the moment is to raise additional funding to test whether our drug can help patients.
You mentioned the pipeline. What else do you have that you're working on?
Yes. So when we learned about our molecular target, we started the identification of completely novel compounds. And the initial focus is on compounds that do not go into the brain, so they can be focused on diseases outside of the brain. And one disease that we think is interesting is called sporadic inclusion body myositis. It's the most frequent myopathy after the age of 50. So people lose mobility, they have falls, they struggle to hold on to things. And we believe that our mode of action, and we've actually tested that in cells from patients with SRBM, could help those patients, again, to preserve functionality and a better quality of life. So the new compounds we want to test in diseases outside the brain. SRBM is just one disease. We also have good preclinical data in lung diseases and in liver diseases. So there we still need to decide what is the systemic disease that we're gonna tackle, but that we want to do with the new compounds.
Is VNA318 the furthest advanced of all of the?
Yes, correct. It's the first drug from Vandria that is entered the clinical development stage.
All right. And I guess you wouldn't be at the regulation stage yet or talking with regulatory authorities?
So to be able to go into humans, you have to do in Europe a clinical trial application. So we conducted the study in France. So we talked with French regulators and the French Ethics Committee. They looked at our preclinical data, at the toxicity data, which were extremely positive because we didn't see any side effects also in the preclinical studies. They looked at the quality of our molecule. So those regulatory interactions we've already had, and then they gave us the green light to conduct the first in-human trial.
And looking at Alzheimer's in general, you mentioned the potential for using a combination of different treatments. Where do you think we're going with Alzheimer's? Do you think that we can get to a stage where we can stop it in its tracks or even turn it back completely?
That's the million-dollar question, I guess. I think we're learning a lot. And at least I would say that I see a good likelihood that we can further reduce the progression of the disease. So with the monoclonal antibodies, we see a significant slowing of the progression, but it's still progressing. And I think we can do better than that with combination therapy. And I'm a more glass half full person, an optimistic person. I could see that there may be a combination therapy, at least for some patients, that can stop the progression, but that lies still many years in the future.
Right. And you already mentioned the fact that it's not the only neurodegenerative disease. There are so many different ones that are all in desperate need of new treatments. So clearly it's a big field.
Yes, yeah, an important field because these are terrible diseases. And if you could have an impact, a positive impact on patients' life with our drug, we would be extremely excited, of course.
But I suppose one of the other advantages to what you're doing is that we're not talking about something that is difficult to administer, because if you have to go to the hospital every day for an injection or it's something that's uncomfortable, then quality of life goes down alongside of that. So yours addresses that too.
Yes, so I think the convenience of use with a once daily oral pill that appears to be very well tolerated, I think is a big plus. I agree with that, yes.
So what's next for the company?
2026 will be an important year for us because we're going to go into patients and hopefully can have first evidence that we can actually help patients to live better lives.
Well, an interesting one there to get us underway for 2026. Now, it's another short interview done at NLS Days in Gothenburg late last year. GoCo Health Innovation City is a relatively new life science district in the south of Gothenburg, designed as a mixed ecosystem for research, industry and healthcare organizations. The campus brings together established companies, scale-ups and academic groups across health, biotech and medtech, with a focus on co-located labs, offices and community-driven programs. To tell us a little more is Moa Dicksdotter, Partnership and Ecosystem at The Hub. All right, so could you tell me a little bit about what you do?
Yes. Well, my name is Moa Dicksdotter and I work for GoCo Health Innovation City. And what we do is that we're building a city center for life science and health. So currently we have about 120 companies at one space that obviously have their own businesses, but they also collaborate and work together to solve future challenges.
All right, and could you tell me a little bit more about the infrastructure and how that's being developed?
Yes, absolutely. So we're building a city center, so it's a lot of new fancy houses, and we specify them after the needs of the company that are housing in there. But what's really important is what happens in between the buildings. So it's not only having a fancy facility to operate in, it's also about being able to be close to the other companies that are in the same area so that they can collaborate in different ways. And we do that in different ways. Partly is to actually introduce people to each other and introduce companies to each other, but it's also about hosting different types of events and activities where people can meet and interact.
Right. And how does that work practically? Is it facilitated? Who facilitates all of that?
Well, we GoCo Health Innovation City, we facilitate quite a lot of them. Obviously, some companies, they facilitate their own activities, but we try to have a good base of activities. Could be anything from a mystery coffee where you are put together with someone else just to have a coffee and a chat to see if you have something that you would like to work with. But it could also be an event on any topic really. It could be on cancer, it could be on precision medicine, anything where we have researchers coming through the stage and telling us about the latest and greatest discoveries, and the people that are there in the audience, they have the same interest in that specific topic, so that they can start talking and interacting together. So, yeah.
All right. Could you tell me a bit about some of the companies that you work with?
We have so many fantastic companies. We have, for instance, Moa Healthcare that we're standing here at the fair with, working with a lot of really cool products like wound care and things like that. We have companies working with IT solutions for life science and health, and other companies working with phase 2 and phase 1 studies on people. So it could be anything. It's 120 companies, so you can just imagine what's going on behind these doors.
And is it still growing?
It is absolutely growing. We're new here. We've only been operating since about, we started building our first building in 2020, so it's only 5 years, and we moved in just a couple of years ago. So this is just the starting phase. We expect to be about 350 companies within a few years.
That's big.
It
is there room for that?
Oh, it absolutely is. Absolutely. We're building as we speak, so and we can't really see a stop to it.
And what would you say is special about the Gothenburg area for that?
Well, I will say the willingness to interact with others, the willingness to collaborate. It's in our DNA. We take it for granted, but it is something that we're really good at. We're good at opening our doors and seeing that there are certain things that we can actually share with each other. Not sharing your secrets, but still seeing how we can collaborate to reach common goals.
Right. And how does that compare with, say,
Malmö or Stockholm?
Well, they're good at it too, but Gothenburg is the heart of collaboration.
All right. So what does the future lie for what you're doing for GoCo?
Well, the future is bright, I would say. We are attracting more and more companies who want to be in this space because they want to collaborate, because they see benefits of being in one space. It's also talent attraction. It's easier to attract new talents to your company if you're in a space that offers much more. So we see a lot of great benefits.
And what about NLS days? That's obviously good that it's here.
It is good. We're so happy that it's in Gothenburg, the first year ever here. We have participated for quite a few years in all the other sites, of course, in all the other cities. We're super happy to have it here, and it's so many fantastic companies to meet and interact with here. So, just awesome.
Must have been saying, come on, you got to come to Gothenburg.
Oh God, yes. We really wanted them to come here, and we think that this is going to be the best one ever.
All right, that's perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's already got a lot of great tenants, but as Moa explained, when it expands to 350 companies, add that in with the rest of the life sciences scene in Gothenburg, and it's definitely going to be even more of a force to reckon with than it already is. That brings us to Oculis, another Swiss-based company. They have a very busy year ahead, with a pipeline that spans DME, dry eye disease, and optic neuropathies, with a focus on non-invasive delivery formats that can replace or reduce the need for injections. We'll hear all about the various programs and trials going on from Oculis CEO Riad Sharif.
To get started, if you could tell me a little bit about the beginnings of the company and the story so far.
Yeah, of course. So the company started with two co-founders in Iceland, Einar Stefansson and Torsten Lofsson. Einar is a retina specialist and Torsten is a chemist and head of pharmacy. And really the question from Einar, who is the clinician, asking his friend Torsten, can you help me to develop a product which I can give in an easy manner like an eye drop to treat retina because my patients do not like a needle into the eye and they are not compliant to injections and so on. So it really started like this between two scientists passionate about science, but also passionate about what they were doing for their patient. We met with Einar and Torsten in the very beginning of 2017. At that time, I was in Novartis Venture Fund. I'm a physician by training, worked 25 years in pharma, in big pharma, between Sanofi, Novartis, and Alcon. And when Einar and Torsten came to us in Novartis Venture Fund, we really realized that actually they were able to develop a technology which was very unique. And coming with the history and the experience from Alcon and Novartis and having spent time in ophthalmology, I knew two things. One is we really need a non-invasive, easy access product which works in the retina. The injections, which I know them very well because I launched one of them, Lucentis, are very good. However, it is really needle into the eye. It comes with its limitations. So therefore, first, I knew there were and there are still an unmet medical need to treat patients with something such as an eye drop, like really a versatile solution for this patient. This is the first thing. The second thing, which we realized when we did due diligence on the technology, that these two scientists truly were able to discover and develop a technology which has concrete benefit for future drugs, such as the drug we have now in the portfolio, which is OCS-01. So these were really the two drivers to take a decision to join them as the CEO and to invest into the company. And then we created at that time Oculis in Switzerland in December 2017. And we started to work and to advance the first asset, which is OCS-01. And then in between 2017 and now, we have been able first to advance materially OCS-01, which is now in a phase 3 in two programs called Diamond 1 and Diamond 2. But also we have been able to enrich our portfolio with two new candidates, One is called licaminlimab, which is a topical anti-TNF. It's really the first time we have a topical anti-TNF, which is anti-inflammatory, anti-necrosis. And then the third asset we added into our portfolio is called Privosegtor, which is the first neuroprotective drug ever showing a clinical benefit into patients. And I will be more than happy to give more details about this biology. So today, the company is a biopharma company, is a public company listed in the US and in Iceland in NASDAQ. 3 advanced candidates. The 3 of them are in phase 3 with a very unique and innovative profile addressing high unmet medical need. The first one is the first eye drop for DME. The second one is a precision medicine for dry eye. And the third one is neuroprotection, starting with an indication which is called acute optic neuritis, which is in the majority of the cases a relapse of MS.
Excellent. All right, I guess we'll go through those one at a time in a moment, but I guess the most recent news from the company was Q3 results. Are you happy with the progress so far?
I'm very happy, yes. I'm very happy. As I shared with you, 3 phase 3s, really. The first is Diamond 1 and 2, which is in diabetic macular edema. And this product, which is OCS01, which is the first product developed based on the OptiReach technology, is in, I would say, the second cycle of the phase 3. The second cycle of the phase 3 means that we finalize the randomization. We are fully enrolled, more than 800 patients. And now we are in the second step, which is the treatment phase with the 52 weeks treatment. And we expect readout in the second quarter of 2026. And very, very pleased with the speed of randomization, very speed with the execution, very happy with the execution of the clinical trial and looking for the result.
Could you tell me a little bit about the conditions that you're looking at?
Yeah, so basically this product is really for all comers who have diabetic macular edema. The product was tested 4 times before in DME, and consistently going to all comers, we ended up with 2 types of population: naive population who never, it's just first onset and they start to be treated. But also the second segment of the population who was treated didn't respond adequately to the standard of care, which is mainly anti-VEGF, and then switched to OCS01. I am happy to say that in the previous trials, the product worked in both population and really brought benefit, clinical benefit to both population, naive population, and previously treated, not responding to the standard of care, and then switched to OCS01 and did better with our product. So these are the 2 populations we would like to address. And when you think about it as a topical versatile product, we can really start with this. Like as soon as there is an onset of DME, patient can be treated. If it works, great. If it does not work, then the patient go to standard of care and the current standard of care, which are injections today. And then for patients who are not responding adequately, and we are talking about a big population, like we are talking. So basically, if I take just as an illustration, population in the US, the DME population in the US, we have 1.8 million patients in the US with DME. In the 1.8 million, the half of them, only the half, are treated. And within the half who are treated, the 900,000, only 500 are adequately responding to anti-VEGF. And 400, so almost the half of the patients who are treated are not responding adequately to the standard of care. So therefore, we end up with the population we can address, which is at least the double of the current population treated, which is the naive patient and the patient who are not responding appropriately to the standard of care. So really this product could create by its own a market, which is today around $3 billion market in the US, a market which is bigger than the DME market, just by going earlier, but also addressing patients who are not responding appropriately to the standard of care.
A lot of companies seem to be taking on eye conditions with gene therapy. How do you view that in terms of your own approach?
So I am a physician, so therefore any solution which is good for patient is good. And I think is very positive, I would say, to try to go beyond and to find a solution. Now, in a gene therapy, what we are trying to do, we are trying to create our own, I would say, micro manufacturing plant into the retina, producing anti-VEGF. Basically, we are really, instead of injecting anti-VEGF, we are trying to produce anti-VEGF. I think it's good. It might be a replacement of anti-VEGF. At the same time, this will not affect us commercially, at least, because we will still need a product to start with it, and we don't have it today. And we will need still a product for patients who are not responding for anti-VEGF. But for patients who are responding to anti-VEGF and they need a long-term solution, this might be a very good long-term solution for them. It is very interesting, but when you think about the current pipeline, and it includes the multiple product in development with the gene therapy, but also with other products, we realize then all product and all newcomers, potentially newcomers, are all going to compete within this segment of patient responding well to the standard of care. We took a different approach. We said, where is really the unmet medical need? And unmet medical need are two segments. The first segment is patients who are not starting early the treatment. In fact, in the US, for example, today, where we have the data, in a database called IRIS, which is a database, which is AAO, the database, we see that more than 60% of patients do not start their DME treatment 12 months after the diagnostic. These are really the patients we want to address. We want to address these patients who are having the disease and literally waiting the disease to worsen to start the treatment. We don't want the disease to worsen for this patient. We want to maintain their sight. We want to act early. We are not just us as a company saying it. This is what we heard and what we continue to hear from the investigators and from the clinician. They want something to act fast. This is what they want. And what they tell us also, they say, with your product, we will start with it and we will use it for patients who are not responding to the standard of care. So therefore, we are really addressing a different unmet medical need and huge unmet medical need, actually.
You were talking about it earlier, the mode of delivery in terms of not having to inject in someone's eye. How important is it to get to, because there's nothing worse than having a fantastic product or drug or treatment for a disease if people are very nervous to use that?
For injection, I would say they are executed by the surgeon. So therefore, they're nervous, they don't like them, but at least the surgeon is executing this. For us, it is a self-administered, is very easy, very comfortable product. We consistently, in the past studies, we measured compliance. It was always very high, more than 85%. And the feedback we have from patients is, your product is extremely comfortable. They take it, and it's very easy application, actually. So the feedback from the 4 last trials and the feedback we hear still from investigators is extremely positive about our product.
Could we maybe go through some of the trials that you're doing now and some of your products? Maybe start with Privosegtor and what it is, what it addresses.
So the Privosegtor is a new mechanism of action. The product, I would say in a nutshell, the product promotes survival of the neurons and oligodendrocyte. The product was tested in multiple situations, first on the bench in 3 models, in apoptosis, inflammation, and oxidation. And what we showed that we can promote survival of the neurons, which means we preserve neurons from dying, basically. Then we moved to animals, and we tested the product in 3 animal models, glaucoma, where we have in the retina, the retinal ganglion cell, which dies. We tested it in acute optic neuritis, which is a relapse of multiple sclerosis, and we tested it in multiple sclerosis. Consistently, what we measured 2 endpoints. The first endpoint was retinal ganglion cell loss. Retinal ganglion cells, as you know, are neurons we all of us have in the retina. In a glaucoma, for example, when they are pressured by the intraocular pressure, very high intraocular pressure, then this retinal ganglion cell start to die. And what we measured, we give a cohort of animals receiving Privosegtor and another cohort not receiving Privosegtor. And then we did the biopsy of the retina to see the result. And consistently, animals receiving Privosegtors were able to maintain or preserve their retinal ganglion cells in the retina. And this, we did it in acute optic neuritis, we did it in glaucoma, and we did it in multiple sclerosis. Multiple sclerosis also, what we did, we measured the function. An animal receiving Privosegtor were able to walk faster and longer than animals not receiving Privosegtor. And then we moved to human. Of course, we did the phase 1 in healthy volunteer, and then we moved to phase 2, which was called acuity. And acuity, what we did, we went to acute optic neuritis, and we compared Privosegtor plus steroid versus placebo plus steroid. And we compared first, it was first in patients, so therefore the primary endpoint was safety, and then the secondary endpoint were the structure, like the anatomy of the retina, to see if we are able to preserve, as we showed it in animals, if we are able to preserve retinal ganglion cells. And then the function, which is LCVA, which is how many letters patient is able to read, which is really functional endpoint, which is very important. And extremely pleased to say that we show that the product at the dose which is given is safe and provide meaningful benefit. First, in terms of function, the patient receiving Privosegtor gained 18 letters mean vis-a-vis steroid alone. So 18 letters is really the double, more than the double, actually. The double is 15 letters. So it's meaningful benefit for patients in terms of function. Then when we see the structure, the retina, and we measure GCIPL. GCIPL is the layer which we assess in the OCT, which gives us the status of the retinal ganglion cells, which are the neurons we have in the retina. And very pleased to say that we were able to preserve retinal ganglion cell by more than 42% vis-a-vis steroid alone. And then the last endpoint is neurofilament. As you may know, neurofilament is a surrogate endpoint, which we measure in the CSF or in the plasma. And it is a surrogate endpoint for neuroaxonal damage. In fact, when the axons are damaged, the axons release neurofilament in the CSF and the blood, and we measured them. And when we measured, we saw that we were able to reduce in a very meaningful, like all what I am sharing is statistically significant, in a very meaningful manner, we were able to avoid neuroaxonal damage versus steroid alone. So results are pretty amazing because we were able to show first that the product is safe, which is important. Second, we were able to bring back the vision. So functionally, we were able to bring back the vision to patient, but also we are able to show that this product can preserve the anatomy of the retina and shows in a surrogate endpoint that we had in a material manner less neuroaxonal damage. And neurofilament as an endpoint is an extremely exciting endpoint, actually, because it gives us an opportunity to go beyond acute optic neuritis. So therefore, what we are doing now, first plan is to move to phase 3 in acute optic neuritis or in optic neuropathies. And the name of the program is Pioneer, and we are starting with Pioneer 1 now. This is for acute optic neuritis. But what neurofilament tells us is that this product is truly neuroprotective and protecting neuronal axonal damage. For example, neurofilament was used as an endpoint for ALS. So therefore, it's a very meaningful surrogate endpoint. And now we are exploring other indications where we want to go. Our first plan is to start with optic neuropathies, with 2 types of optic neuropathies, acute optic neuritis, with 2 phase 3s, Pioneer 1 and 2. The second one is NAION. And then we would like to go to relapse of MS, because in fact, acute optic neuritis is a relapse of MS. And what Privosegtor showed us is that it can prevent and it can preserve the retinal ganglion cell loss. And it can prevent for the functional loss as well. So therefore, our aim now is to go to explore and develop the product for other type of relapses to avoid the relapse-associated worsening, which is the same as in AON, in acute optic neuritis, when we lose LCVA. Here, for example, if you take another type of relapse, for example, mobility, where we lose mobility. With our product, because it is neuroprotective, it can truly reduce relapse-associated worsening and can materially change MS from a chronic disease to a chronic disease under control, where we will not be suffering from functional worsening.
Right, excellent. Could we move then on to OCS-01 and the Diamond trials?
Of course. So Diamond trial is a global trial. The trials, we have Diamond 1 and Diamond 2 in 119 centers in the world. Slightly more than 2/3 are in the US and the rest is ex-US. It's fully enrolled. The readout is planned in Q2. The two endpoints are functional endpoints. The first one is mean change in terms of BCVA, in terms of functional improvement. And the second endpoint is responder analysis, which tells us how many patients gained more than 15 letters. Good news is we have been able to deliver on these two endpoints consistently in the last 4 trials. So therefore, we are very confident about this program and, of course, looking forward to the readouts. And then the plan is to submit for NDA immediately after, next year already. And then the aim is to submit with FDA and to prepare our launch in the US, which should take place around 12 months after the submission.
And next, I guess, would be licaminlimab.
Yes. So licaminlimab is a TNF blocker or inhibitor. It was specifically designed for inflammation in the eye and specifically designed to be given as an eye drop for the eye. This is the first point. The second point, this is, as you know, a validated biology. TNF blockers are very potent anti-inflammatory, anti-necrosis product. And the third for dry eye. So our strategy in dry eye is the following. Dry eye has been a big market, so far unsatisfied. We know that between 85 to 90% of patients stop their treatment after 6 months because they are not happy. And the typical patient really of dry eye will go to his or her doctor showing a bag of multiple products tested and no one worked. And we ask ourselves, okay, we want really to avoid these trials and error. We want to have a precision medicine product. And we were able to identify and validate a biomarker, which is binary, a genetic biomarker, which allows us to know who will respond to our product in a very meaningful manner. I am talking about response which is around 5 times the type of response we have in all comers. And our aim now, in alignment with FDA, is to have as a primary endpoint this population, which is a TNF-R1 population. We call them a TNF-R1 population. And we know that this population hyper-respond to our product. The primary endpoint will be for this population. The aim is to have much more efficient development, because instead of going to trials and error type of studies where you need 100 patients to show something, we are going to a very small, efficient trials, less than 100 per arm. Basically, it's really small in dry eye, very efficient. Primary endpoint is the TNF-R1 positive. And our aim is to drive precision medicine. So our aim is really to go to this population. It allows us to have an efficient and a high probability of success program. This is on the clinical side, but also commercially, it makes more sense. It makes more sense for the prescriber, for the patient, and for the payer to pay something which we know it will work, and it will work very well for the patient. So it's really, in the end of the day, our plan is to develop, because the market needed, the first precision medicine in ophthalmology, and it will be with licaminlimab in dry eye.
I guess that means that the next 12 months are going to be quite important for the company. How are you approaching that, all of this critical mass at the same time, I guess?
I have been in the company now for more than 5 years, and almost every year, the next 12 months, we're going to be rich. So we continue, which is good news. So the good news is things are coming in a phased manner. So the first half is really starting Pioneer. So we are starting now Pioneer 2, Pioneer 1. Pioneer 2 will start the first half and focusing on Diamond readout. This is the most important. The second half will be starting Pioneer 3 and preparing the readout of dry eye on TNF-R1 study, genotype-based development. And then the next year will be fully focused on Privosegtor and the submission of OCS01 in DME. So I would say, yes, it's a lot to do. At the same time, we have been able to show that we can manage a portfolio such as Oculis portfolio. I am very, very pleased with the team we have, very solid development team in all functions, and we should be able to deliver. This is our goal.
We have an aging population on the planet, and eyes are one of the, as I'm wearing glasses now that I didn't 5 years ago, eye conditions like DME are on the rise everywhere, but especially in some places like Asia. How can you address what's really a global problem?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you, Jim. And in fact, when we did the clinical trial, and our plan was to do it in Europe, US, and Asia, and so on. But the recruitment rate was so fast in the US, actually, that plan was to go to around 20 countries. We went to 5 countries only because the recruitment rate was very fast. What this tells us, it tells us that even in the US, we have many patients who need the treatment. And investigators and prescribers were extremely supportive to randomize this patient and advance in this study. And most probably, as you said, in other countries of the world beyond the US, the unmet medical need is most probably higher and bigger. And this is why if we are able to deliver, and this is our goal, a product which is versatile, efficacious and safe and easy to use, we will be able to help millions of patients in the world. I think at Oculis, we are super excited. We have an innovative, differentiated product which truly could help and transform the way we treat multiple diseases. And we are excited to continue our journey.
Well, as you heard, 2026 might be a little busy for Oculis and for Switzerland, considering they're also in the FIFA World Cup, which takes place in 2026. So that's it for this week's podcast and my voice. If you do want to get in touch with guest opportunities, or if you want to advertise, please do get in touch at jim@deeptechdigest.com. So, until next time, wherever in the world you are, I hope you have a great week ahead. Thanks for listening, and I hope you'll join us again next time for another Base to Base Biotech podcast. The Base to Base Biotech podcast is an Air Coastal Media Limited production.